This is the examination of the hidden human condition.
You're listening to the Hidden Killers Podcast.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi.
A former University of Richmond basketball star is on trial now for the alleged murder and concealment of his son's body. Is this something that was taken totally out of context and he was just trying to preserve the body after some sort of horrible accident, or is there something that seems to be much more sinister going on here? We're going to dive into this story and find out. The star, Kassceen Weaver, he's standing trial for the alleged murder of his young son and concealing the body in a freezer for several years. Weaver, a Virginia resident, faces charges of felony murder, felony child neglect, and concealing a dead body. The shocking discovery of the child's body was in Weaver's Chesterfield's home in 2021, which led investigations and the legal process to begin. Prosecutors claim that Weaver, who's now 50 years old, was responsible for the death of his youngest son, Eliel Adon Weaver, known as Adon, an attempt to hide the child's demise. Adon was reportedly under age 5 at the time of his death. During earlier court hearings, the Chesterfield Commonwealth's Attorney's Office revealed that Adon had suffered from blunt force trauma, including a skull fracture and multiple rib fractures, among other injuries. Weaver's wife, Dina Weaver, initially faced charges related to the child's death. However, prosecutors later withdrew the charges against her. Kassceen Weaver faces an additional charge of aggravated malicious wounding involving his wife. I
don't know what that is.
I don't know. A malicious wounding involving his wife with a trial scheduled for next month. So it sounds like domestic abuse of some sort. Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Joshua Lauren opened the trial by recounting the events that unfolded on May 4th, 2021. That day, Aiden's mother's brother alerted the police, informing them that the child's body was being kept in a freezer at the family's residence. A subsequent search warrant executed by the police uncovered Aiden's body in a vacuum-sealed bag and plastic storage bin inside a large freezer in the garage. So did he use like one of those bags that you use for like storing clothes or?
That's what it sounds like. Like, you put them in there and then you suck it all out, and in the fall, your blankets just fluff right back up.
That's all I can think of.
What it sounds like.
According to Lauren, the autopsy on Aiden revealed skull fractures, a fracture in one of his upper arms, and rib fractures. Keep in mind, this kid was under 5. The prosecution argued that Weaver, as a stay-at-home father and the primary caregiver for his 2 sons, was responsible for Aiden's well-being, including homeschooling. Lauren said that in October of 2018, Weaver had called his wife while she was at work, expressing concern about Aiden's condition. Aiden's mother wanted to take him to the emergency room, but Weaver opposed the idea due to bruises on the child's body and the fear that their other son could be taken away, which he probably should be. Instead of seeking medical help, the family decided to wrap up Aiden's body and eventually stored it in a freezer that they purchased. Be an interesting conversation at Lowe's. We're looking for a freezer.
I need a certain size.
What about this one? Now it needs to be as big as a body. Well, again, this is sick, but keep in mind, it's a 5-year-old, so you probably really don't need that big of a freezer. In the defense's opening statement, Weaver's attorney, Emily Hasselbrook, argued that Weaver intended to preserve his child's remains out of grief rather than concealing any wrongdoing. Then call the cops.
Exactly.
Who
does that? I am so sad. I need to preserve my body and not tell anybody about it because I'm grieving. Like, that's such bullshit.
Just gonna preserve it right here next to the Kool-Aid ice pops. He would have loved those.
Stick him in the freezer in the garage. No one will ever know. We can pay our respects to him there every day.
Well,
no, you conceal him because you murdered him.
Hasselbrook added that the family chose not to report the death to avoid subjecting the body to an invasive autopsy, and because they had plans to buy a house with a spacious backyard to bury Adon.
And you can't have someone die and bury him without informing.
Yeah.
Like,
You can't
the person has died. There needs to be a death certificate. So all of that shit is because he killed him.
Well, I guess I do have to say to the attorney that's representing him, she's doing her job. She is vigorously trying to defend
enough.
Yeah. Trying to defend whatever.
Don't.
Hasbrook further highlighted that the Weaver family often made decisions that differed from conventional norms, such as opting for a home birth for Adon and choosing not to vaccinate him or to take him to a pediatrician. That's not conventional norms. That's being an irresponsible dumbass.
We're not going to even take him to the doctor.
Yeah, that's not breaking conventional norms. That's abuse in itself, in my opinion. When you don't get your child proper medical care and vaccines and things that will prevent them from dying or spreading disease, which we now have seen starting to happen and with diseases that have been eradicated because of the oh-so-wise parents that say, I don't think they should get vaccinated for polio. Really? Really?
Yeah.
Maybe would you like to go back to those times or just, I don't know, go to the library, read about it. I'm sure there's documentaries on it too. You can see how lovely the time was when your child gets polio and how well that works out.
Yeah.
Or any other number of diseases that we've thankfully eradicated because of vaccines. The defense argued that the parents have the right to make choices for their children based on their beliefs and values. I don't like that. If they're sane, I'm cool with it. And if you're not going to vaccinate your kids, and I know that you can do that now, then they shouldn't be going to public school or interacting with anyone for that matter.
And honestly, I don't think these kids did.
They probably didn't.
I think which is why he didn't want the pediatrician to ever see the kid.
They probably
then he would see bruises and signs of neglect.
If you're not
this next part of the story, this next part kills me. It's so ridiculous that his lawyer could even say this.
Regarding Adon's cause of death, Hasbrook claimed that he had no injuries that could have resulted in his demise and that he was well nourished, countering the prosecution's allegations of neglect.
Okay, so he had no injuries. He was well nourished. He just died. So they put him in the freezer because they want to buy a bigger house so they can bury him there. That's all. Well, then how did the kid die? But and now that he's dead, we can't prove that he was well nourished. But we can look at autopsies. We can see he had broken bones and skull fractures.
Or just pop him out of the freezer, unthaw him, and take a look. And, oh, hey, looks like not too nourished here. And, oh, yeah, very bruised up.
Isn't that the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard?
During the trial, Dina Weaver, now estranged from her husband, testified that she was at work on October 23rd, 2018, when Kassceen called her, stating that Adon had passed out and was not breathing. Adon's mother advised Kassceen to take him to the nearby emergency center, but Kassceen claimed to have performed chest compressions and revived him. You still then take your child to the emergency center if you've just revived them from death.
But he's
all
breathing.
Good. He's breathing. Let's order a pizza. Upon her return home, the child was unresponsive, prompting her to implore Kassceen to take Adon to the hospital. However, he refused due to Adon's bruises and the fear of losing the other child. Diana, why didn't you just take him to the fucking hospital?
Exactly.
And I get someone who's in an abusive situation and you fear for this and that, but this is your fucking kid. And at some point, you have to stand up for them, whether you're going to get the shit beat out of you or not.
I would die protecting.
I would too. So stand the fuck up. Yeah. I'm imagining she probably has some sort of agreement here to testify and probably can't be prosecuted. I don't know. I could be wrong, but if you ask me, I think she should be next.
I kind of think she should be. I think she should be prosecuted.
I do too.
Because if nothing else, she didn't tell anybody that her kid was dead.
No, she's aiding an abuser. She's aiding a murderer. Mm-hmm. Upon her return home, the child was unresponsive. Okay. Dinah testified that she had bathed Adon's body, placed him in his crib, said goodbye, and left the room. Kassceen subsequently wrapped Adon's body in clothing, placed it in a plastic bag, and stored it in a plastic bin. That's what you do at bedtime. all the time. Yes, bathe the dead body, put it in the crib, say goodbye so dad can vacuum seal you. And then
put you in the den.
God. They kept the bed in the family's den until the odor became noticeable. Not a lot of Glade plugins going to fix that. At this point, Kassceen acquired a freezer for the garage and transferred the remains there. So he started like decomposing in the bin in the family room. These idiots didn't even think about that. Like, hey, putting a dead body in the den might start smelling. I guess he thought the vacuum sealing was going to keep him fresh.
And there's another child in the home at this time. So it wasn't just they had the one son. They had
Dina admitted to entering the garage, but claimed she never looked inside the freezer. The mother further revealed that Kassceen had discussed the incident as a crime and even briefly considered purchasing a house with a plot of land to bury Adon in the backyard. It wasn't until May 3rd, 2021 that she confided in her brother, revealing the details of Adon's death along with the material issues she was facing with Kassceen. It's not known if Kassceen will testify in his own defense.
So October 23rd, 2018, she finds her son dead and doesn't tell anyone until she tells her brother on May 3rd, 2021. Then it's like, yeah, my son is dead in the freezer in the garage.
By the way, yeah, don't go in there for the, when you're watching the house this weekend, the pizza bites. Don't go in that freezer. That's that's not where they're going to be.
Finally, somebody stepped up and did the right thing, and her brother called the cops, and that's how this whole thing got even found out. But it's weird that, and I guess you can cover it up by homeschooling because, and if you're homeschooling your kid, then school's not looking for them. You've never taken them to a doctor. Doctor's not looking for them. So I guess you could conceal your kid for a long time like that.
Are these two just like mutants of people? I'm very curious. Because sometimes you look at the pictures of them and you're like, oh, holy shit. Yeah, these are just mutant type people. No, actually, they you look at them, they look fairly normal. She looks kind of like Cruella de Vil. He just kind of looks like your average guy. I don't think I wouldn't really suspect much.
He was a star basketball player in college. It's like, when you think back on his life, like in college, it seemed like probably he's going to turn out to be this great person. And he's he's a horrible person who could do this to his child.
Yeah.
And we can't take him to the doctor because then they're going to see the bruises and they're going to take away our other kid. And that's okay with the wife? Oh, yeah, you're right, hon. They're going to see bruises. We better do what we can to keep our kids in this abusive situation.
They both look utterly, I don't know. They look normal, but they look, she looks scarier than he does. I'll say that if you look up their mug shots.
But there's got to be something they need to charge her with because she knew the body of the child was in the freezer. She did nothing to help the child, report it, anything. Isn't that aiding and abetting?
Yes, it is 100%.
And maybe they just were like, we got to get one or the other, but how could you not charge her as well?
It didn't say in the story, but I'm curious to know, because she's not in jail right now. Does she have custody of the other child still?
I don't know that. I hope not. I hope that uncle does. The one person in the story who did the right thing.
One can only hope. One can only hope.
You're locked into the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.